Okay. Let us continue with this one. I don't remember which part this is. I'll figure it out. The first place Gabriella took Dahlia to was a clothing boutique. It was a shop for commoners, but the garments looked very fine. Clothing and accessories were more costly in this world than in Dahlia's previous one. Dahlia anxiously tugged on Gabriella's sleeve. I'm not sure I can afford this. Don't worry, you've got my husband as a guarantor. You can always dip into his wallet if need be. That sounds nice, but I don't think she's wanting to do that. I would think, anyway. The reply raised far more questions than it answered, but all were simply met with a blithe smile from Gabriella. Blithe, however you pronounce it, I don't know. Welcome, we've been expecting you. No sooner had the clerk greeted her than Dahlia's dull gray dress was promptly tugged off over her head. In the middle of the shop? Really? Seriously? Within moments, she was measured here, there, and everywhere. This was immediately followed by a stern scolding from the shop assistant and Gabriella about the size of her underwear. Completely wrong, apparently. Her weight hadn't changed much since she was in college, so she'd simply kept buying the same sizes without bothering to try things on, she explained, and received an even sterner scolding. Okay. The shop assistant got a hold of her and took further measurements before bringing her some new sets of underwear to try on. Really? I mean, I know she has to try them on to know, but usually you don't try them on. Wait, I'm thinking of, like, packages of underwear, like the mass-produced ones, not like lingerie sets. Okay, so those you do try on. Wearing the correct size of lingerie is absolutely essential, the woman reminded her at least 3 times. In the end, Dahlia agreed to buy 3 sets of properly fitting underwear. Next, she had switched swatch after swatch of fabric brought up to her face to check which colors suited her skin tone. Those that did were pasted onto a piece of paper and handed to her. It seemed she was supposed to choose from among them. The shop assistant asked her about her taste in clothing. I like clothes that are easy to move in, don't show stains, and wash easily, she replied. The shop assistant fell silent while Gabriella put a hand to her forehead in dismay. Oh, boy. I'm guessing that wasn't the right answer. Or at least not an answer they were expecting her to give. Dahlia was promptly marched back to the changing room. The shop assistant came in with a heap of clothes and her arms so enormous she could barely see where she was going. Try all of these on, please. All of them? Oh, dear Lord almighty, she's going to be there for a while. The assistant's smile was ever so slightly chilling. Dahlia didn't know what to say, looking to Gabriella for support, only to see her come through the door with a mountain of clothes twice the size of the last one. How much are you guys expecting to spend? Jesus. With Gabriella and the shop assistant in charge of selection, Dahlia was dressed up in a seemingly endless succession of outfits. Hang on. Friggin' something in my eye. Until a short list of about 20 garments in 10 different patterns hung up on the rail. She was told to choose at least 3. She tried to get away with picking the 3 that looked cheapest, but Gabriella immediately saw through her. Now, Dahlia, you need to understand what these clothes are for. Think of them as a letter of introduction. When you meet with new business partners and clients as chairwoman of your company, you need to inspire trust. The right clothes are important for creating a good first impression. I could not have said it better myself, the shop assistant agreed with zeal. You simply must have some more flattering clothes. The explanation made sense. Dahlia had to admit, however, she had no idea what sorts of clothes would inspire trust and make a good first impression. Frankly, she was too overwhelmed by all these styles to even tell what suited her and what didn't. She confided this to the other 2 women and sought their advice. They eventually settled on 2 outfits. The first was a lustrous lamp black dress with a vanilla beige jacket. The second included a cool hyacinth blue ensemble and a long deep blue skirt delicately trimmed with lace. Dahlia was pleasantly surprised by how much she liked them. Clothes that are too loose for you end up being difficult to move in. Besides, there are many fabrics with good elasticity coming on the market these days. Fabrics with unicorn hair woven into them are especially comfortable. Unicorns are in this world? I guess it makes sense considering there are dragons in this world. But at the same time, common, not rare," explained the shop assistant as Dahlia fretted over the choice of the third outfit. The crosswoman's ears immediately pricked up at the mention of unicorn hair. After a bit more deliberation, she picked out a pair of olive green pants made, of course, from an elastic fabric woven with unicorn hair. To pair with this, she chose a light summer sweater in lily white with just a hint of green and a white shirt to wear underneath. As far as Dahlia can remember, this was the first time in her second life that she ever bought white clothes. Why? Okay. The final task was to find shoes to match the new outfits. Dahlia insisted on no more than 2 pairs. Gabriella and the shop assistant dove into deep discussion, and soon the trying on began. After what felt like eons, they agreed on a beige pair that suited Dahlia's skin tone and another in glossy black. They both had low heels for comfort and ease of walking. By the time every garment and shoe had been discussed and finalized, Dahlia felt ready to crumble into a pile of ash. I don't blame her. I would be too. I would have probably done that much sooner. The assistant explained that the shop employed a seamstress specialized in tailoring, so the necessary adjustments could be made to Dahlia's new clothes right away. While they waited, the assistant prepared the bill. However, it was not Dahlia she presented it to, but Gabriella. Dahlia, do you have 5 gilt silver? Gabriella asked. Understood 1 gilt silver as equal to about 10,000 yen. So about 50,000 yen you're paying for all this. Or at least your part in it, if it's not the whole thing. They are buying 7 pieces of fairly high quality clothing here, 3 sets of underwear, and 2 pairs of shoes. There was no way it cost as little as that. I'll pay for these. It must be more expensive than that, right? No, I insist you save your coin for the next shop, The next shop? It makes sense, considering she's going to have a proper shop to be able to make her products and sell her products in, because she can't just do it in the tower. That's her home. You can't have people coming in and out of your home. It was a miracle that Dahlia stayed standing. The next shop turned out to be a cosmetic shop. Dahlia had changed into her new lamp black dress and glossy black shoes at the boutique. She hadn't worn heels in years. The extra height was going to take a little getting used to. Welcome, Madam Gabriella. Good afternoon. I'm brought along the special guest I mentioned. This is Dahlia, chairwoman of the Rossetti Trading Company. Madam Dahlia, thank you very much for coming. Being introduced as chairwoman to the shop assistant caught Dahlia off guard, but she kept from making a fuss, not wanting to embarrass Gabriella. She gathered herself, returning the bright-eyed woman's greeting with what she hoped was a friendly smile. The store's shelves were lined with all manner of cosmetics, every corner prettily adorned with vibrant flowers. Dahlia couldn't help feeling intimidated. What can we help you with today? I'd like you to teach me a beginner's makeup routine that can be done in 10 minutes, Dahlia replied. I'd like to buy 1 set of makeup to use for that. Certainly, madam. I'll note the steps down for you, Gabriella added. Thank you. That would be something I would need too if I was doing something like that, because I know nothing of doing makeup. The assistant invited Dahlia to sit down in front of a large three-sided mirror. A number of cosmetics sat on a small table to the side. The assistant stood beside Dahlia while Gabriella reclined on a sofa behind them. What kinds of makeup do you normally use? I've used face powder and lipstick before, but they never seem to suit me. That's all. The truth was that she'd stopped using makeup altogether because Tobias had said he didn't like the smell of it. Well, you have very lovely skin already, so we'll just shape your brows and then apply some simple eyeliner, lipstick, and blush. I'd be happy to recommend some eyeshadow and face powder as well, but we can skip that if you prefer. I'd probably need to, if I was doing makeup, I'd probably avoid anything to do with my eyes because I can't see out of my right one, and you'd need to be able to close one eye and keep one eye open in order to be able to do stuff like that. So, yeah, not happening. In her past life and this one, Dahlia had only ever had the most basic makeup knowledge and skill. She sat there rather awkwardly as the assistant began skillfully shaping her eyebrows, smoothly explaining her actions as she worked. Next, she began picking up the cosmetics on the table, explaining to Dahlia how to use each one before applying it to demonstrate. Dahlia's slightly thick, ungroomed brows were soon trimmed into a slender, elegant shape. That simple touch was enough to take away any hint of scruffiness the young woman might have had. The peach fuzz on her face was thoroughly shaved, leaving her skin looking noticeably brighter. To her perfectly nice but unremarkable eyes, an application of eyeliner added definition and sharpness, while some eyeshadow lent depth. A little blush added a healthy glow to her pale cheeks. The look was finished off with lipstick. When Dahlia faced herself in the mirror, she couldn't help wondering if there wasn't some touch of magic in the shop's products. The assistant looked very pleased as she concluded her demonstration. She showed Dahlia to the wash basin in the corner of the shop and helped her remove the makeup. Now it was Dahlia's turn. She has to do it herself. She was dismayed. How was she supposed to remember all that? Just as she took up the eyeliner pencil, she suddenly remembered something she'd practiced in high school. One of the tasks she'd been assigned in her magical tool-making classes involved combining several ingredients to make specific colors, then painting those colors according to instructions onto a certain magical tool. It had been difficult, but very enjoyable work. Perhaps she could imagine her face was that magical tool and follow the steps she'd learned in school to put on the makeup? Maybe? When she thought of it that way, she relaxed a little. After all, magical tool makers needed a delicate hand. The ability to produce precise coloring and make fine adjustments was essential. Oh, brilliantly done! And it suits you so well, chirped the assistant, delighted as Dahlia finished applying her makeup. Nice, girl! You did it good! The woman immediately launched into another speech about the different products she'd assembled. Dahlia could only sit and listen politely. I recommend a face powder with silk mixed in. It doesn't dry out, you see. Nearly all of our eyeshadows are plant-based, but lately some manufacturers have been incorporating monster products. Monster products? What sorts of things are they using? I'd be a little worried too. Well, for example, there's a pigment extracted from red slimes that has a lovely translucent quality. They've developed a new process that completely detoxifies it. In fact, the lipstick we use today is made with a blend of that new pigment and the classic formula. Oh, red slimes? They're made of gel, so I can see how that would give nice transparency and depth. The shop assistant nodded enthusiastically. Exactly, the transparency is excellent and it looks very natural. Just last month, someone developed a lipstick sealer made with the outer skin of krakens. It helps your lipstick last much longer before you need to reapply it. Interesting. Kraken skin would certainly form a strong seal. I imagine it must help prevent your lipstick from smearing on cups and glasses too. Indeed, very useful when you're out for a meal or having tea, the assistant replied with the same unwavering energy. There's another product I've heard about, not that we've ever been able to get it in stock. An eyeshadow made with ground leaves from the world tree. It isn't green, they say, but this gorgeous light blue color, just like the sky itself. Its leaves become the color of the sky? Gosh, how lovely. Whether the conversation that followed was really about makeup or about monster materials, it was hard to tell. Regardless, both of them enjoyed themselves. Gabriella put down her notebook and sat watching the other two women with a gentle expression. Dahlia eventually left the store with a basic makeup set and a generous armful of free samples. I'd like to toast you with a glass of wine, but I'm afraid time is flying, so this will have to do. By now, it was well past noon, approaching the hour for afternoon tea. Dahlia and Gabriella were seated across from each other in a comfortable cafe. On the table between them was 2 plates of thick, fluffy pancakes served with fresh fruit and whipped cream and 2 dainty cups of black tea. Oh, pancakes sound good. I hope you'll consider us friends from now on, Dahlia. Call me Gabriella, won't you? I prefer to speak to company chairs on equal terms. Right, Dahlia could only mumble a timid reply. Gabriella was a viscountess, a guildmaster's wife, and a vice-guildmaster in her own right. Calling her by her first name just didn't seem right. Now, Dahlia, we finally got you some nice clothes, and you're slouching. It's a waste, you know. Oh, I'll try not to. Gabriella. Dahlia caught herself, nearly calling Gabriella by her title as she was used to. The older woman only laughed and urged Dahlia to eat up her pancakes before they went cold. The pancakes were wonderfully light, each bite melting in her mouth with moments. The flavor was excellent, too. They must have been made with top-quality milk and eggs. Dahlia ate the first few bites plain, then added some whipped cream. It was flavored with fragrant vanilla but not too sweet. The texture was silky smooth. She enjoyed her second pancake with the remaining cream and some fruit. The fruit's sweetness and juiciness only enhanced all the other flavors. Both Dahlia and Gabriella were almost silent as they ate. Perhaps they'd worked up more of an appetite than they realized. When they had finished and were taking a moment to enjoy the sheer satisfaction of those delicious pancakes, they were brought 2 fresh cups of tea. I'm sorry for springing all that on you, Dahlia. Oh, please don't apologize. I've learned so much today, and you even paid for my clothes. I can't thank you enough. I wouldn't have figured those things out on my own. I'd never even considered them before. Putting on the new clothes and makeup had been eye-opening. She'd never taken very much interest in fashion and had no idea what sorts of things were important or what suited her. However, she was determined to do whatever was necessary to be a successful chairwoman and earn the trust of her clients. She resolved to put more effort into her appearance from now on. Oh, I almost forgot. I think you ought to go to the temple and have your vision restored so you can get rid of those glasses. My glasses? Yes, they're only getting in the way. It was as good as an order. It was certainly true that wearing glasses could be inconvenient at times. Just the other day, when she'd been testing her soap dispenser in her bathroom, they'd been fogging it constantly. Having her eyes seen to at the temple would certainly make her work easier. She inquired about the cost. For both eyes, the sum total would be 1 gold and an appropriate donation. She could manage that. While eye conditions were generally treated by doctors, the temple was where people went to have their vision restored. Doctors treated illnesses, temples treated wounds. That was the basic rule in this world. Even people who'd lost a limb could have it restored within a week by a priest using regenerative magic. Dahlia remembered the first time she'd heard of that. It had certainly impressed upon her what an incredible force magic was. On the other hand, the knowledge of how to treat diseases was not as advanced as it had been in Dahlia's previous world. She'd assumed you could treat just about anything with some magical cure, but magic, it turned out, wasn't a panacea. In this world, people fear diseases far more than injury. Right, I'll pay them a visit. Thank you, Gabriella. You've done so much for me. Think nothing of it. I'm only repaying the debt I owed to Carlo. You owed my father? Dahlia asked, puzzled. She couldn't remember her father doing anything for Gabriella that would put her in this debt. It was your father who introduced me to my husband. He and I both owe Carlo a debt of gratitude. I had no idea. Carlo forbade me from speaking about it. He said he didn't want everyone coming to him looking for introductions to rich husbands, so I was to keep quiet about it until he died. Gabriella's husband was a nobleman. Viscount Jetta, Dahlia's father, had been an honorary baron. It wasn't far-fetched that they'd cross paths somewhere or other. There was another reason. He asked me to be there for you should you ever need help, as a toolmaker or just as a woman. And if you didn't, then I was to keep this a secret forever. He really said that. Not that I thought you were struggling, I just thought since you didn't have that Orlando boy holding you back anymore, it'd be good timing to start your own company. Of course, being a chairwoman means you need to be the face of your company. That's what today was all about. As for why I insisted on making my husband a guarantor, well, having a nobleman's backing will keep you out of most kinds of trouble. Thank you so much. I told you, just repaying a debt. There's no need to thank me. And remember, Dahlia, you're free now. There's a lot more work and a lot more men coming your way from here on out. But you can do things on your terms now. It's up to you to judge what you want and need and to forge your own path. Essentially, so she's telling her that now you can find your own, husband on your own terms instead of it being set up as an arrangement. I understand, Dahlia nodded, her expression resolute. He kept it quiet, but all sorts of people came to your father for advice, He was very well liked and very much trusted. This was a side of her father Dahlia had never known. He'd often come home late, and she'd always assumed he'd just been out drinking. In reality, he might have been helping someone with their troubles. Do you know what Carlo's favorite pastime was, Dahlia? Well, if not tool-making, then drinking, I suppose? He did love his drink, I'll grant you that. But no, his favorite pastime was definitely... The ivory-haired woman leaned in toward Dahlia with a deadly serious expression, making debtors out of people and then swearing them to silence. Huh? Both women burst into laughter and began fondly reminiscing about Carlo, Dahlia's dearly missed father. No, I'm going to have some editing to take care of. Reunited. What the heck is this? The sky truly was intensely, beautifully blue. Dahlia felt a wonderful sense of freedom as she looked around the familiar streets with her newly crystal-clear vision, no longer reliant on her glasses. She could even better appreciate the subtle beauty of her outfit, the olive-green pants and lily-white sweater Gabriella had bought her. Dahlia cast her mind back to earlier in the day. She had hopped on an omnibus first thing this morning and traveled to the temple where she would have her vision restored and see if she could then do without her glasses. The temple was in the northeast of the capital, closer to the castle. It was a beautiful building made of white crystalline stone that glittered in the sunlight. The architecture was something like a cross between a church and the Roman Forum. Medical treatment didn't take place in the temple proper, but in an adjacent building known as the Hall of Healing. Within the white rectangular building, reminiscent of a hospital, you were guided to different wings depending on the nature and severity of your injury or illness. Regarding her donation as the fee to restore her vision in both eyes would come to 1 gold. She was told a few silver coins would be appropriate. She felt very nervous, but the guide in the Hall of Healing warmly assured her that restoring her vision would be a simple procedure. She had a long wait of 2.5 hours, but when the priest at last saw her, the whole procedure was completed within 5 minutes. She left the temple with her vision as clear and sharp as it had been when she was a child. Rather than boarding the omnibus again, Dahlia walked into the city center, enjoying the scenery as she went. To celebrate the founding of her company, she decided to treat herself to a nice meal. The piece of her unremarkable life had been shattered over the past few days. First she lost her fiancé, then she stumbled across a blood-soaked knight, and finally she'd been practically bribed into founding her own company. Thus she was determined that the rest of today would be pleasantly uneventful. She would enjoy a delicious meal, pick up an interesting new book on tool making and some sweet red wine, then head home. She'd take a long bath and spend the rest of the evening relaxing with her book. Tomorrow morning she'd be ready to plunge back into her tool making with all cylinders firing. Something like that anyway. She wasn't quite sure where to eat, but then she noticed a chic-looking restaurant on the main street that she remembered Gabriella mentioning yesterday. It was her first time entering a restaurant like this, so she felt a little nervous, but she gathered her courage and stepped over the threshold. A staff member greeted her cheerfully and showed her to a table out on the terrace. Each of the tables outside was shaded by a large beige parasol. Beneath it, out of the afternoon sun's glare, the fresh early summer breeze felt very pleasant. Dahlia was handed a menu and was barely pursuing it when she noticed something peculiar. At a table a few meters away from hers, the diners were staring at something out on the street as if transfixed. One after another, people looked up from their plates and menus, every one of them gazing in the same direction. Wondering what was going on, Dahlia followed the stairs, when suddenly her eyes met with a young man walking toward her. Oh! What were the chances? Not expecting him to recognize her, Dahlia averted her gaze so as to not appear rude. However, the dark-haired young man made a beeline for her. He looked just as strikingly beautiful as she remembered. Oh boy, here we go. The white silk taffeta shirt and black pants he wore today suited him well. I apologize for disturbing you, but might you be related to someone called Dolly, or is that you? Yes, it is. How did he figure it out? That's why I want to know. It was Wolf, the knight she'd met in the forest. His golden eyes shone happily as he looked down at her. It really is you. I'm so glad. My vision was so fuzzy the other day, so I wasn't sure. Please forgive me. The forest isn't safe for a woman on her own, so that's why I was dressed that way. There's no need to apologize. I took full advantage of your goodwill after all. I can't thank you enough for what you did for me that day. Volz didn't seem at all angry at her for hiding her gender. He even politely bowed as he thanked her. Thanked her. I cannot talk today. Did you know? Back in the forest, I mean? I wasn't sure. Your voice sounded just like a man's, but while we were riding in the carriage, I noticed you had more of a woman's scent. A woman's scent? She had in mind to ask if that strengthening spell he used enhanced his sense of smell too, and she kept the question to herself for now. I was using a magical device to change my voice. I'm surprised you were able to recognize me. It was the way you looked away when you saw me. It struck me as odd. There's the color of your eyes too. I couldn't see well the other day, but I remember that jade green color, and you just had the same presence, so I came over in the hope that it might just be you. Then I caught your scent and I was almost sure. You've certainly got a good nose. She wasn't wearing perfume, and she bathed every day. How much scent could she have? Now she was feeling awfully self-conscious. I'm actually sort of relieved that you're a woman. Why is that? Well, to be honest, I found you rather charming when we met the other day. I started wondering if my taste had started leaning the other way. Oh yeah, he was starting to question his sexuality. What way? Dahlia exclaimed, making Wolf chuckle. I'm more than happy to stand and chat, but would you mind if I joined you? Of course, if you're meeting someone special here, we can do this another day. The gazes of all the women in the vicinity weren't merely pricking at her, they were stabbing. It could be a pain if anyone got the idea that they were actually were acquaintances, but with half the town looking at them already, perhaps it was too late for that. Dahlia gave up worrying and nodded. By all means, take a seat. I'm here alone. Thanks. This is incredible luck. I was just on my way to the Merchants Guild. Going shopping for the knights? No, looking for you. Me? I was going to ask if they knew anyone who fit your description. I wanted to thank you for what you did. I didn't feel right not compensating you for that potion, and I wanted to return the coat you lent me, too. I had the captain write me a letter of introduction. That was a close call. She'd have been in for a stern warning about going into the forest alone and perhaps asked why she'd used a false name. Every woman in the guild would have wanted to pin her down and ask her about Wolf too. Yep, you avoided that big time. Let me treat you to lunch, won't you? And I'll pay for that potion. Don't worry, I'm not trying to hit on you. We made a promise, remember, that if I saw you, I'd at least buy you a drink. I just want to thank you properly, and if you don't mind, I'd love to continue our talk about magical swords and tools. Well, alright, that would be lovely, thank you. Great. Perhaps it shouldn't have been surprising for a knight to have such a strong sense of duty. Content to put his behavior down to that, Dahlia ordered the seafood spaghetti and chilled tomato soup. Wolf selected herb-crusted grilled chicken, a ham and cheese platter, vichyssoise soup, and 2 glasses of a reasonably expensive white wine. Are you happy with white? If not, I'll order some red as well. Yes, I like white too. Dahlia had always felt thankful for the rich food culture here in the royal capital. She'd heard that it was known in other kingdoms as the city of cuisine. It seemed that many of this world's most delicious foods could be found here. The staple grain here was wheat, and the cuisine resembled what Dahlia would have called Western style in her previous world. There was nothing exactly like a Japanese food she remembered, but some dishes came close. Naturally, since ingredients like monster meats could be found in the markets here, there were many dishes that likes of which Dahlia had never seen in her former life. Ever since she was little, she had looked forward to the 2 times of the month when she and her father would go out to eat. They always tried something new, and if it turned out disappointing, they simply made something good at home. Now that she thought about it, she'd rather lost interest in eating out since her father had passed away. She hadn't gone looking for a new restaurant in a long time. Perhaps today would be a good opportunity to break that pattern. No one was holding her back anymore. She would hunt for some new restaurants and enjoy as much delicious food and fine drink as she wished. I didn't realize how beautiful you were when we met in the forest. Yeah, because she wasn't, all dolled up and everything before. Thank you for the opening compliment. That was my natural look, though. I'm wearing makeup today. Her father having been a baron, Dahlia was familiar with this custom among the nobility. When meeting a woman for the first time, young noblemen would typically pay her a compliment before beginning serious conversation. Another thing she remembered was that, as socializing with nobles, very frequently gave her father a stomachache to the point that he often took medicine. Are you actually a noblewoman, Miss Dahlia? No, I'm a commoner, but my father was an honorary baron, so I'm familiar with the etiquette. It must be difficult coming up with compliments for women you barely know. It can be. People get rather upset if you forget or if you don't do it well. Wolf replied somewhat gloomily. Dahlia could easily picture the scene. Wolf was the very definition of an Adonis. He must have gotten caught up in dozens of misunderstandings. Just as Dahlia was about to steer the conversation in a different direction, their white wine arrived, along with the ham and cheese platter. Let's have a toast, then we must try some of these cheeses. Wolf poured 2 glasses of the white wine for them. It had the palest glimmer of gold. Well then, here's to our reunion. They touched their glasses together with a gentle clink. Dahlia remembered that in her previous world you weren't supposed to clink glasses when toasted with wine, but here people always did. It was believed to banish evil or some such. The rule applied whether it was wine, ale, or really any drink. People drinking alone would simply touch their glass to a bottle instead. Dahlia had seriously wondered at first whether it was just a ploy by the glass makers to increase their sales, but it seemed people followed this custom even when using wooden cups or, in the case of nobility, silver goblets. How do you like it? It's very good. The wine was on the dry side, but not at all bitter, with a pleasant grapey flavor. Dahlia liked it very much. I'm glad. Back in the forest, I got the impression you might prefer red. Red's my usual choice. I like sweet wine. Let's order a sweet red next, then. It was the middle of the day, and they'd only just opened their first bottle. Now he was talking about a second? That's a bit hasty, isn't it? That said, she'd already helped herself to a few mouthfuls of the cool, refreshing wine. It was very pleasant. The main dishes soon arrived, and the pair continued conversing as they ate. Are your eyes better now? Completely. I can see perfectly now. I'm taking it easy for a few days just in case, though. Are they making you write that apology letter? No, it's a proper rest. The captain let me off without a letter or anything. That's good to hear. I had the orders searching high and low for me for 2 days, though, so I'll need to buy everyone a few drinks when I get back on duty. Are you sure we can't split the bill today? Not a chance. Don't worry, they pay us beast hunters pretty well. As she listened, Dahlia popped a forkful of her seafood spaghetti into her mouth. The chopped seafood was well seasoned with salt and spices. It was an ideal dish for a hot summer's day. The royal capital was located quite close to the ocean, so it enjoyed a steady supply of fresh seafood. However, while the varieties mostly resembled those Dahlia had known in her previous world, one major difference was in the sizes. It wasn't uncommon for fishermen to pull up 2-meter-long squid, fist-sized shrimps, and 30-centimeter scallops. That's big. You had to make sure you knew what you were ordering. Her tomato soup was a little sweeter than she'd expected. However, the seasoning of basil made it taste very fresh and pleasant. This was another dish well suited for the summer months. Wolf neatly sliced his herb-crusted chicken, taking sips of wine between bites. Judging from his satisfied expression, it must have been very good. Help yourself to the cheese too, said Wolf, gesturing toward the platter. Thank you. As she looked down at the assortment, Dahlia noticed 2 kinds of cheese that were curiously red in color. They were red even where they had been sliced, so it wasn't some kind of coating. I'd never seen this red cheese before. That one must be Crimson Cattle cheese. Crimson Cattle? Yeah, they're a species of monster, actually. But they've been domesticated in one of the neighboring kingdoms. Their coats are all red and white patches, and even their milk is pink. I've heard their products are getting very popular lately. I'll try a little. As she bit in, she found it was harder than she'd expected. The flavor was like Bimolette, only sweeter and richer. This cheese would be a better match of red wine than white, she thought. If we're ordering another wine, we'd better make it red for this cheese, huh? It seemed Wolf had exactly the same thought. Dahlia couldn't help smiling. By the way, he began, changing tack. Your father wasn't angry about you lending me his coat, was he? No, don't worry. My father passed away a while ago. I'm so sorry. I never would have taken it if I'd known it was a keepsake. It's all right. I often wear it myself to keep the rain off. It will be a waste to just keep it hung up somewhere. I'll take it to a cleaner before I bring it back to you. I didn't realize the inside was lined with wyvern, not sand lizard skin. I can take care of the cleaning at home, so you don't need to worry about that. And the wyvern skin was just some scraps I stuck together and attached. My father was always getting his coat hooked on things and tearing it, so I put that skin in there just to reinforce it. You used wyvern skin for that? Wolf looked at her with his mouth slightly open in shock. The wyvern skin Dahlia had used was only offcuts, so that would have been thrown away otherwise. She cut it up into strips, mixed it with a little blue slime powder, and used a mixture of adhesive and magic to stick it to the coat with a fixing spell. Using a single large piece of wyvern skin would have been far too expensive. Yes, but it was only some odd pieces that were going to be thrown away anyway. It didn't all stick very well either. The bits I used from the back of the elbow are all falling off. Do you happen to be in the clothing business, Miss Dahlia? Or wholesale, maybe? Oh, excuse me, I still haven't properly introduced myself. My name's Dahlia Rossetti. I'm a novice magical toolmaker. Hang on. A magical toolmaker? Well, that explains why you know so much about them. And there I was talking about that waterproof cloth like it was some kind of expert. That's embarrassing. The young man hid half his face in his palm. It was frankly impressive how he managed to look like a work of art no matter how he posed. It was good to hear from someone who actually uses that cloth. I'm the one who invented it, you see. Really? You made that? I did. The feedback you gave me was very useful. I'm going to try developing a new version that's lighter and more breathable. That'd be brilliant. Making camp would be so much easier. Gods above, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for letting me meet Dahlia Rossetti once again. Stop that, Dahlia exclaimed as Wolf closed his eyes and solemnly put his hands together in prayer. That was the second time she'd shouted at him today. The man in front of her grinned like a child who'd pulled up a bit of mischief. His appearance and his behavior were totally at odds with each other. She wasn't sure what happened when she was with him. Was she thrown off her stride or pulled into his? Perhaps the wine was just getting to her, more than she realized. Bottle's already empty. I'll order us another, said Wolf. However, the restaurant had become more crowded since they'd arrived, and few of the waitstaff were coming to the terrace. Better go find someone inside. Before Dahlia could offer to go herself, Wolf had already stood up. Was it the strict hierarchy within the knights that he was used to, or was it entertaining women? She decided not to think too deeply about that one. She had delicious food, fine wine, and as engaging a conversation partner as she could ask for. The gentle breeze that wafted across the terrace felt ever so lovely. I think I'm still going. Dahlia? Unfortunately, Dahlia knew that voice. It belonged to the last man in the universe whom she wanted to meet. Orlando, of course, this guy. Especially when she'd been in such a good mood. She peeked around to see him gaping at her in astonishment. Hoping to pretend she hadn't noticed him, she quickly looked away again. Miss Dahlia. Oh no, he's here with her. This is not good. This voice belonged to someone else, a young woman, in fact, who came hurrying over in a way that reminded Dahlia of a little animal. With her wispy pale, honey-colored locks, her doe eyes, and her small, slight stature, she was the kind of woman men felt compelled to protect. Her cherubic features, lightly accented with makeup, were already drawing the gaze of many of the restaurant's patrons. I'm so sorry, I never meant to hurt you. I've been wanting to apologize for you this whole time. Amelia, you've done nothing wrong. I'm the one to blame. In an instant, the whole restaurant was looking at them. Dahlia's emotional discomfort index shot through the roof. Could they not have simply ignored her and gone on their merry way? Was it really necessary to do this here? Now? I know, there's a time and place for this. If you wanted to do this at another time, that'd be fine. Just tell her, can we meet up and talk in private? No, he wants to do this now while everybody's watching. Dahlia looked at the tearful young woman in front of her and felt completely and utterly unmoved. She had no interest in what she had to say. Your engagement was ruined because of me. I'm so sorry. I've nothing more to say. Amelia may have been apologizing, but there was nothing suspect about those theatrics. Why was she advertising their affairs for all these strangers to hear? Was she trying to open up Dahlia's wounds and provoke her? It was hard to think otherwise. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Dahlia, don't blame Amelia for this. All Dahlia had said was, I've nothing more to say. 5 words, that was all. She would love for him to tell her where exactly in that little sentence she had blamed Amelia. He could go and find himself some manuscript paper like they'd used in school and write her an extended essay analyzing the matter in scientific detail if he liked. It was bad enough having her own time wasted by these two, but she really wanted to avoid involving Wolf. As she was wearily trying to figure out the quickest escape from this situation, she realized that the night had returned. The stares of the curious onlookers, as well as those of Tobias and Amelia, had found a new target. It was no wonder Wolf didn't merely steal glances wherever he went. His beauty took people's breath away, too. From behind, he whispered so that only Dahlia could hear. Do you still love him? Not one bit, she replied instantly, in as few words as necessary. My dear Miss Dahlia, if you have broken off your engagement, then I shall take that to mean you are single! Oh, no! Oh, this is going to be so weird! Oh, this is going to be fun, considering he could probably hit on her, and Tobias would be like, we'd see Tobias' reaction to this. Oh, it's going to be good! Wolf stood at Dahlia's side and spoke in a tone she'd never heard from him before. His smile was like something from a charming painting, and all of a sudden his manner had become that of a fairy tale prince from a play. A cheesy play at that. Oh, here we go, guys. This is going to be so freaking cheesy. I have a feeling. Praise be to the goddess of fortune. Many times have I entreated you to dine with me, yet to my sorrow not once have I... What the fuck? You've just met her! You frankly just met her, and... What the... He's playing it up. He's playing it up. Don't make it seem like you cheated. Not once have I had the pleasure. Now, on the day that we are reunited, I find you are free from your attachment. I am overjoyed. The peculiar speech was delivered in a voice as saccharine as sugary candies drowned in honey. Dahlia's face tightened, a horrible chill running up her spine. Dahlia, who's this? Tobias asked with a frown. Tobias had no right to be talking to Dahlia so casually, and no right to demand the other man's name right in front of all these people. However, Wolf answered before Dahlia could. Okay, who is this? Is this supposed to be Tobias? Is this Tobias? I'm assuming this is Wolf. Ooh, he's cute. So is this supposed to be Dahlia? Like, what the fuck? Someone tell me, please. I am Wolfred Scalfarotto of the Royal Knights. To whom am I speaking? Dahlia's breath caught in her throat. The other day, Wolf had said he was the son of a minor noble. Minor! There wasn't a single person in the city who didn't know the noble house of Scalfarotto. 20 years ago, it was that family alone who had made possible the king's great water reform, having cracked the secret to the mass production of water crystals. To his achievement, Viscount Scalfarotto, as he had been at the time, had been made an Earl. It had been such a historic feat that it had even been written about in the textbooks Dahlia had used in elementary school. Today, the Scalfarottos were responsible for nearly all aspects of the kingdom's water infrastructure, from the steady supply of water crystals to purification in the sewer system. They were supremely gifted in water magic, more than anyone else in the capital, and it was rumored that the next Earl Scalfarotto would be made a marquis. Both Tobias and Amelia froze on the spot. Oh, so is his family on a higher note than Amelia's family? Oh, that'd be fun to see. Please forgive my manners. I am Tobias Orlando of Orlando & Co. And I am Amelia Tellini, a receptionist at Orlando & Co. Is that so? That curt response was all Wolf gave the pair before he turned away, not even deigning to look at them. Instead, he walked to Dahlia and elegantly offered his hand. Miss Dahlia, shall we have a change of scenery? I have just the place in mind, and there is so much I wish to discuss with you. Would you do me the honor of accompanying me? Don't you need to pay for your food first? I'm assuming he went and did that already, or he could do that now? They were only about 2/3 of the way through their meal, but Dahlia was glad of the invitation to escape from this ridiculous soap opera. She didn't hesitate to lay her hand upon that of the beautifully posed knight. Gladly. Wolf's hand felt very warm around hers. Oh, this is going to be fun to watch. Oh, the drama. The drama. Let us continue. Once they'd walked a little ways from the restaurant, Dahlia said, "You saved me back there. Thank you." "No need to thank me. I just hope that what I said won't cause any problems with your work or anything. If so, I can..." "Of course not. It just took me by surprise. I didn't know you had such a silver tongue." He's gotta have to, considering how he is. "It was all true, though. I invited you for a drink when you left me at the castle gates, but you brushed me off. I said I wanted to talk with you again, too." When the other carriage had come up behind Dahlia, Wolf had said something she hadn't heard. She felt a rush of happiness, knowing he'd been thinking the same as her at that moment. "I'm sorry I didn't hear you over the rain. I should apologize for deceiving you and letting you think I was a man as well. You didn't need to feel guilty about that. If I had realized you were a woman, I'd never have gone and washed in the river, so my eyes would have gotten even worse. I wouldn't have eaten all your food and drunk your wine either." Wolf stopped in his tracks and looked at Dahlia with concern. "I'm not imposing on you, am I? Did you want to be alone today?" "Not at all. It was just lunch. Nothing special." "Look, about the engagement. It was something our fathers arranged. Just before we were about to get married, my fiancé told me he'd found his true love, quote-unquote. That's how we broke things off." "True love?" Wolf was unable to hide the disdain in his voice. "Can't say I really understand." "Me neither." Dahlia agreed with a brief shake of her head. In this world, it wasn't generally approved of for people to make decisions on the basis of true love. No wonder you don't have feelings for him anymore. None whatsoever. At least it happened before you registered your marriage. That's the only silver lining. Dahlia nodded with a genuine smile. I couldn't agree more. To be honest, I felt like we were rudely interrupted back there. I'd love to talk with you a while longer, and I could do with another drink. If it's all right with you, shall we go somewhere else? She didn't know this man well, and he was a nobleman. Even though she was no longer engaged, her immediate thought was to turn him down. Just as she cast her eyes down at the ground, she suddenly remembered how badly she wanted to speak to him again after they finished parted ways. The thought gave her a much-needed push, and she straightened herself, answering confidently, "Definitely, I'd like something else to eat." As the pair set off again, they suddenly realized they were still holding hands and quickly let go. Oh, this might be a slow burn romance. That would be cute. I think those two could be good together. What do you guys think? Dahlia and Wolf walked for a while, heading into the southern part of the Central District. On Wolf's recommendation, they entered an eatery for commoners that offered a broad range of drinks. Once they were inside the red roof building, Wolf asked a staff member to show them to the private room farthest in the back. "Now, let's get ourselves a proper meal. What do you have to drink? They've got a good selection of red wines. I'll get you anything you like. Well, I prefer you didn't order a cask, though." The menu Dahlia was given was very thick and deep. More surprisingly, half of it was made up of various kinds of alcohol. A cask of wine, you say? Oh, there it is. Right at the back of the menu, Dahlia saw they offered casks of wine in 3 varieties, red, white, and rosé. I suppose they must be for parties, she mused. In this world, commoners didn't put on fancy clothes and hold the ceremony when they got married. Instead, it was customary to take a short holiday after registering your marriage, during which you'd get together with friends and family either at your house or a restaurant and enjoy a good night of eating and drinking together. Of course, Dahlia had yet to experience that herself. Of course not. "I'll have a pale ale then, please." "Right then, I'll have a dark ale. How about food? Shall we order a few things to share?" "Sounds good. That way we can try a bit of everything." A waiter soon came to take their order, and they pointed out the choices in the menu. "We'll have 1 pale ale and 1 dark ale, 2 orders of seafood skewers, the pork and vegetable fritters, and the steamed chicken, Miss Dahlia." "I'd like the black pepper fries and grilled fava beans, please." As the waiter left, Wolf readjusted himself in his seat. "Would you mind if I use this? It's an anti-eavesdropping device." Ooh. From his pocket, he took out a small silver object shaped like a pyramid. These devices were a kind of magic tool often used by nobles and wealthy merchants. "Feel free. I don't think we'll be sharing any secrets, though. I mean, what you're talking about could be something potentially someone else could possibly try to steal and make themselves." I don't really use it for that, just when I want to chat freely with my friends from the Order. The little silver pyramid began to glow pale blue in the Wolf's hand. Before we get started, I want to make a request. In the very slim chance that I end up getting smashed, would you call me a carriage to take you back to the castle barracks? I will, and if the same thing should happen to me, please put me on a carriage to the Green Tower in the West District. While there was no good reason to assume either of them would be getting blackout drunk today, it was better to be safe than sorry. The two of them weren't close after all. It would be no good calling a carriage if they didn't know where to send each other. There was a taxi-like system of carriages that waited around the city's busy shopping district. It was the safest way to get home after a few too many. I've never blacked out from drinking before, though, Wolf commented. How about you? Not even once. I've never gotten very drunk at all. What's the most you've ever drunk? I've got through 4 bottles of red wine once that could still do my work perfectly. Huh. I think that more than qualifies you as a king snake. In this world, king snake was code for someone who could hold a good deal of liquor. King snakes were a species of monster which lived in the deserts. They could be lured out of hiding with alcohol and seemed to have a strong liking for it. Dahlia had heard that hunters would fill a large jar with drink, wait till the king snake had consumed it all and was completely drunk, and then capture it. I've never really had much more than that. How about you? Dahlia inquired. I've drunk white wine up to the carryover and been just fine. Wow, that makes you a sea serpent. The carryover meant 10 or more bottles. Jesus Christ. These guys, either the alcohol isn't very strong or their bodies are very adept with this. While sea serpent referred to someone a rank above a king snake. Those people truly had livers of iron and basically never got drunk. Whether it was from physiological differences or the influence of magic, Dahlia wasn't sure, but there were many people in this world upon whom alcohol had little effect. Dahlia herself could drink far more beer than she could in her previous life, though by this world's standards, she wasn't particularly resilient against it. There's a lot of us sea serpents in the nights. Treating them to drinks is going to cost you. Let's split the bill here, shall we? Looks like I said too much. Pretend you never heard that. Maybe if you order that cask, we can split it. It seemed there would be no changing his mind. He was determined to treat her today. Dahlia realized she had better just be gracious and accept. Very well, another toast then, she said, relenting. Here's to our reunion. To our reunion. Their food and drinks had begun to arrive, and they toasted with their ale. Dahlia's ice-cold pale ale was light in flavor. Nevertheless, it had a good hoppy aroma and a pleasantly subtle bitterness and left a fresh, clean aftertaste. It wasn't overly carbonated either, which she felt suited this ale's flavor well. Wolf, on the other hand, had already emptied his first mug of dark ale, and what was left in the bottle wasn't likely to last long. Now, do you think we can relax and talk as equals? We won't be hurt if I use the anti-eavesdropper. I'm not so sure. I mean, you are the son of an earl. I may bear the Scalfarado name, but I'm the youngest child. I don't have any guards or anyone following me. They just leave me to it. My mother was no one of note, and the earl's third wife at that. I was brought up in a separate house, and now I live in barracks. So you see, I'm no good at formality. Sure you can't indulge me? There was the slightest hint of a tear in the man's golden eyes. He looked as beautiful as ever, so why was Dahlia suddenly remembering a dog she kept in her previous life? All right, then. I'm a commoner, so I don't know the noble's customs anyway. I'll try not to be too formal with you. Now the anti-eavesdropping device. How does it work? According to one of the mages at the castle, it layers the sounds nearby so they cancel one another out. It doesn't muffle every word, but the way it makes the sound randomly fade in and out means it's impossible to follow what's being said, if you're at all far away. You can't get away with using it if the tables are too close together, though. It sounds unnatural. I see it can't do anything to stop lip reading either, then. Rather than completely insulating the users in some invisible soundproof barrier, it seemed the device simply made conversations difficult to pick up. Wait, do you make things like these too? Well, I'm not sure what things like this would mean exactly. I made magical tools useful for daily life and sell them through the Merchants Guild. Dryers, waterproof cloth, those sorts of things. I think these anti-eavesdropping devices are more mages' territory than magical tool makers. Right, I see. I thought magical tool makers made pretty much all of these things. They each took half of the dish of freshly grilled fava beans, snacking on them as they drank their ale. The beans were piping hot and a little fiddly to shell, but they were delightfully aromatic and cooked to the perfect softness, with a subtly sweet aftertaste. These beans, slightly charred on the outside and seasoned with a generous sprinkle of salt, were very much like those Dahlia had enjoyed in her previous life. I have to say, Sir Wolf, you surprised me back there. It was like you became a completely different person. I just thought it'd be a good way to cut the conversation short. That's what I'm like when I actually try to act like a noble. Would you prefer I spoke that way? Absolutely not. It made me want to head for the hills. Good, it'd be exhausting having to keep that up. I just wish I had more ordinary looks to match my personality. It was just as well they couldn't be heard. That comment seemed likely to bring down the wrath of every average-looking man in the kingdom. That said, it was true enough that beauty brought its own problems. Dahlia remembered an especially pretty friend she had in college who had often been bothered on account of their looks. I imagine you must get accosted quite often. 3 times today already, just in the time it took me to get from the barracks to that restaurant. It must be tiring just to go outside. If I'm on my own, I usually wear a hood and glasses. I make a point of standing out today, though, just in case you might find me. I'm sorry I put you through so much trouble. Damn it. I should have at least told you my name so you could find me through the Merchants Guild. No, I'm sorry for being so pathetic. I don't blame you at all. I just really wanted to speak to you again. Wolf reached up with one hand and scratched his head, looking bashful. Anyway, enough about that. Let's eat. Yes, I'm looking forward to this. Wolf handed Dahlia her portion of the seafood skewers, and she began to eat them one by one. They included large shrimp, small fish, scallops, and kraken. All were simply seasoned with salt. The plump, meaty shrimps were tender and juicy, and with each one being the size of Dahlia's fist, they were very satisfying. The little fish cooked whole were somewhat similar to shishamo smell, but were bright red in color. The white flesh was sweet, the innards subtly bitter. There was something odd about that flavor that she couldn't quite put down. She wondered if these fish were a monster species. The scallops were large, and the grilling hadn't at all diminished their delicious sweetness and tender texture. The kraken was definitely the most unusual item. These marine monsters were regularly caught by fishermen and mercenaries using large boats, so they were available cheaply and in large quantities, both as a source of food and raw materials. What was on Dahlia's plate had been sliced up into bite-sized pieces and represented only a tiny piece of the animal, but the reddish-brown color on the surface reminded Dahlia of octopus. I mean, krakens usually kind of look like that. When she bit into it, however, she found the springy texture and aroma was just like squid. She'd heard that kraken could have a bit of an unpleasant smell, but Dahlia didn't notice anything untoward. It had obviously been taken care of at some stage in the preparation or cooking. Have you ever found yourself wondering whether kraken is more like octopus or squid? Dahlia asked. Yeah, it looks like octopus alright, but the flavor is definitely closer to squid. Hard to tell when you see it on the plate like this, but when you think about how many portions you'd get out of a single kraken, it's amazing, right? Right. The ice mages most certainly have their work cut out around this time of year. Just one kraken could easily fill several storehouses, depending on the size. They were butchered into large sections out at sea, but needed to be cut even smaller to be sold in the markets. Aside from midwinter, ice mages were kept busy all year round, filling the storehouses with ice. Once frozen, the krakens were cut up into small, sellable pieces. Dahlia recalled many of the mages gifted in ice magic doing this as a fairly lucrative part-time job when she was in high school. Next, Dahlia and Wolf moved on to the fritters and black pepper fries, and they ordered more ale. This time, they both went for the ruby ale. It really is ruby red. Yeah, they brew it with red barley. Dahlia found herself turning her glasses around to admire the beautiful deep color. She tried a sip, finding it very fruity and strongly carbonated. This would be ideal for enjoying it with fried food. The ale and the chunky fries, seasoned with salt and black pepper, made for an absolutely irresistible combination. She'd have to start loosening her belt at this rate. So do magical tools usually have just one enchantment on them? That's right, one enchantment per object is standard. Layering enchantments is usually the work of skilled mages and alchemists. And how would a mage go about layering enchantments? Have you heard about that before? Wolf took a knife and split the steamed chicken on the table into 2 equal halves. The innards had been removed, but it still made for quite a hearty dish. Well, I'm sure everyone has their own secrets, but I imagine they must use some technique to seal in each enchantment. Whether that be a special kind of spell or potion, I'm not sure. I see, sounds quite complicated. I remember you told me about those enchanted kitchen knives before, and I was thinking it'd be really useful if we could have some different enchantments on our swords, like the reinforcing and self-cleaning ones. Oh, and a weight-reducing one, too. Dahlia paused, staring down at the knife Wolf had just used to slice the steamed chicken. With a hand to her forehead, she sat there thinking about the structure of a sword for a few moments. Do the swords you use have changeable guards and scabbards? Yeah, we change them when we need to. Blades break now and then. I was just thinking, if they're changeable, then surely they all qualify as separate objects. I don't know whether it'd be possible or not. It might have been tried already, but if you disassembled one enchanted the blade with a reinforcing spell, used water and air magic to put a self-cleaning spell on the guard, and with a weight-reducing spell, then put it all together. I wonder whether that would work. Wow. Wolf's golden eyes went wide, then he beamed. That'd be fantastic. It'd make our work a whole lot easier. You could create the first totally man-made magical sword. Wolf couldn't disguise his excitement with that last comment, almost shouting it. He looked a little sheepish and quickly lowered his voice again. When Wolf spoke about magical swords, there was moments when his expression became like a child's. His eyes sparkled with curiosity and a spirit of adventure. They were fascinating to look at. Sorry, I went and got overexcited there. I can see you've got a real passion for these swords. Yeah, it's my dream to wield a magical sword as some other enchanted weapon. I can't do enchantments myself, but it's a lot of fun just thinking about it. I know the feeling. I love my magical tools, and coming up with new designs is one of my favorite parts. Dahlia realized this might be the one thing she and this young man had in common. She guessed he'd realized it too. His golden eyes were brimming with happiness. Do you have anywhere to be today? No plans. Great, I'm in the mood for a few more drinks. Wolf emptied his glass in one swig, but first, let's finish off this chicken. The two of them did just that, tucking into the steamed chicken as they continued the conversation. It had cooled by now, but the meat was beautifully moist and tender. It just fell apart in the mouth. It had no strong odor and was delicious on its own and with a spiced onion sauce. Time for another drink. I think I'll have an akvavit with ice. How about you? Akvavit? What's that like? It's a spirit made from potatoes. It tastes slightly of caraway and some other herbs. Goes down smoothly. Okay. One for me, two then, please. Wolf got up and ordered, and a waiter soon arrived with bottles, glasses, and a small bucket filled with ice. Alright, a new drink calls for another toast. It's a bit cliche, but here's to a prosperous tomorrow. To a prosperous tomorrow. With this oft-spoken wish, they made their third toast of the day. The aquavit, pleasantly chilled by the ice, was mild and smooth. The flavor was very pleasant, just as it slid down their throats. The grassy, herbal flavor of the caraway came through beautifully. However, this wasn't a drink to be trifled with. Something this potent would soon go to one's head. At the risk of being too forward, do you think it would be alright if I just called you Dahlia? I'd like for you to call me Wolf, too, without the sir. I wouldn't mind you calling me that, but I don't think I feel right addressing you that way. I'm only a commoner. I understand. I'll get a scrivener to write up a certificate that says you can speak to me how you like without breaching etiquette. What kind of horrifying joke was that? For one thing, no one would use a scrivener for something as frivolous as that, and for another, he hadn't quite grasped the problem with them being on such familiar terms. She shuddered to think what other women and nobles would think of it. It could affect her work. That's not quite the issue. I'm the youngest of my father's 4 sons. My mother was a baron's daughter. She's gone now, and her family's fallen from the nobility. I'm a scalferado, but I can't use water magic, let alone any of the other schools. I'm going to quit the nobility someday and make my own way. We can speak to each other as friends and just call it practice from my commoner life. The 5 major schools of magic included fire, water, air, earth, and healing. Having some talent in these schools was considered very important among the nobility. Couldn't you marry into a noble family? An earl's son without any magical power is just an embarrassment. I could marry, but succession would be the problem. I'd have to adopt a boy or pass my estate on to a nephew or something. Most family lines come to an end if they lose their magical power. Besides, I think I'd just be treated as a trophy if I were to marry, and if I were to have a daughter, there'd be a lot of pressure on her. The family would want her to marry well and bring them more wealth and status. What a world you live in. She discovered from Wolf afterward that it wasn't so uncommon for people to relinquish their noble status. Among high-ranking nobles, the eldest and most capable son would inherit the family title and the bulk of the wealth, with another son in reserve in case anything should happen to the first. In other words, an heir and a spare. Any other sons were either married off or became commoners. Daughters were sometimes married off to wealthier and high-ranked husbands, but most married a noble of equal or lower rank, a wealthy merchant, or a government official. The system was designed in such a way that the total number of nobles never really changed. Dahlia's father had been an honorary baron, but she was born and brought up as a commoner, so she knew almost nothing of the trappings of nobility. I suppose even nobles have it hard sometimes. Some men find it easier just being a married woman's lover. Our kingdom allows one man to have multiple wives and one woman to have multiple husbands, but not many women choose to have more than one spouse, unlike men. What you tend to see much more often is younger men in a casual relationship with married women. The marriage system in this world was one thing that had taken Dahlia by surprise. The registration process was very similar to what she'd known in her first life, but there were some major differences here. In this kingdom, marriages between one man and multiple women, one woman and multiple men, and people of the same gender were all recognized. That said, marriages between one man and one woman were by far the most common type among commoners. The next most common was one man with multiple wives, often seen in wealthy merchant households and such. There were several reasons why the nobility practiced both polygamy and polyandry. It often had to do with the preservation of rare magical abilities, succession, or the protection of land and assets. At first glance, the nobles seemed to lead charmed lives, but the reality was perhaps not so rosy. Sorry, I went a bit off topic there. Volk smiled wryly as he filled both their glasses to the brim with aquavit. Say, Dahlia, if I brought you one of our swords, do you think you could try enchanting it like you were saying? I'd pay you for it, your time and expenses, of course. It didn't escape Dahlia's notice that he'd casually dropped the mist from her name, yet oddly enough she felt quite at ease with it. I don't mind if we spoke informally as long as it's just when we're alone. As for the sword, if I mess up with the enchantment, then it'd be ruined, so it'd probably best we start with a cheap short sword, don't you think? Don't you think, Volf? For one moment, Volf's golden eyes opened wide, then he gave Dahlia a smile so dazzling it seemed to radiate sunbeams. Yeah, brilliant. I can't wait to get started. Magical Toolmaker Dahlia. Okay, I think I'm going to end this one off here. I'll see you guys in the next video.